It is February 26th at 5:40 PM. I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Lawrence Community Shelter Board of Directors. First item on our agenda is a call to order and determination of quorum. And we have quorum, so we're good. Next item is approval of the agenda. I did make one correction since sending out the agenda. Under new business, I put back on there the item B, just board member updates or comments. Didn't mean to take that out. It was just inadvertent. So that leaves anybody a chance to say anything they want to say tonight. Otherwise, it's what was sent out earlier. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, if there's no discussion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. The next item under regular business is executive director report. I'll also note, in an attempt to help us with being good users of our time, I just put some ideas on there. Trying to make sure we're gonna reserve enough time for our executive session, which we struggled to do in the past, so. The numbers there, or the minutes there are just kind of guideline. Hopefully we can stick to it. We're running a little bit late, so maybe we can try to tighten it up somehow too. All right, go for it, James.
The clock starts now. I had to think long and hard about what I wanted to present to reserve the time. One of the things I want to present is Ruben Medina is our new HR volunteer specialist. And I wanted Ruben to come and introduce himself to the board. And so I think you know John really well. He currently—
Which means John knows Ruben very well.
Same thing, yeah. I first met Ruben in a motivational interviewing training. And we started talking about the shelter, and I think he had just started in this field, this arena. Came out of the shelter, we talked, and then he's been working with HRC, he's been working on the HRT team, and I really appreciate what he's done. He's been there 2 weeks, and it's been some of the best things that's happened to grow the shelter with the staff support that we talked about. I got some exciting news for Christina too. Want to introduce yourself, Ruben?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Ruben Medina. As you may not know already, that I am a community volunteer and engaged in the homeless response team outreach, helping veterans connect them to services. So I understand that I am a disabled vet myself. So I'm pretty familiar with those expectations for veterans when they file a claim and what that looks like. And it's a long process. And with that experience, I brought that to the team, and that helped bring some good ideas up in regards to touching base with homeless veterans and connecting them, and being part of the shelter and human resources. It kind of gets where I get to have an experience, serving our guests in front line and having that, different experiences at the shelter houses that we use the same strategies on our team. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. And then also knowing John and Kevin serving at Jubilee Cafe, that's been a passion project of mine to stay engaged with the people, to meet them where they're at. And so moving on from that, we went to the overflow, and being a lead on that, we've been able to successfully keep some people sheltered in the winter emergency with no fatalities related to winter emergency deaths. So that was something proud I'm very proud of the fact that I'm part of a team and a city that believes in that. And much important is that I'm part of an organization that is directly related to increasing outcomes in terms of ending chronic homelessness in Douglas County. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to the team.
Thank you.
One of the things that I think will be interesting to everybody involved is that we've entered into a collaboration with Anchor Collective. And we are planning to have as a competency for all of our staff mental health first aid training. And we're going to start that. We're putting together the place we're going to train and how we're going to divide the team into different groups. But we should have something in place and start by May 1st. And this will be certification training for everybody know what mental health first aid is? It's the leading edge mental health, training for a lot of agencies nowadays. So we're excited about that. And we had our initial meeting for our second meeting on that. And I think it's gonna be really good. Robbie from Anchor Collective, we got introduced to him by Aaron and David. So it's a collaboration and it really feels like we're moving in the direction we always wanted to go. I think now's the time we can start doing that. Get everybody trained, certified, and we'll do recertifications. And no, every 2 years. I think it's 2 years. So I'm excited about that. That really feels good. So any questions?
You said Anchor Collective was the name of the trainers? Are they local or did you say?
From Eudora.
Eudora?
Yeah. Robbie's a certified mental health first aid trainer. So he's gonna do it. He wants to provide the training of no cost. He said he has grants to do that. And then we're also figuring out ways to continue that if the grants phase out or anything. So we're also working on that as we do this. So it was good.
It's like a weekend long, couple hours.
It is 7-hour training and we're gonna divide it into 2 groups. That's what we're starting. There's a way to do blended training, but I think the most important way to do it is to have the groups. The first training will be the in-person training for the full 7 hours. It'll probably be 2 days, 3.5 hours each. And then when we recertify, we can do the blended training, which means they do the first, I think it's 2 hours online. So they start the training as recertification is going back to the whole training, but the blended training can be done, part of it, the first 2 or 3 hours can be done online individually. We didn't want to do that the first time because we wanted to know where everybody's at. So I can see us, for new staff, we'll probably do ongoing training and maybe, depending on maybe once every 6 months, depending on how many new staff we have. We don't have enough staff for a full class, we'll do blended training or we'll do smaller classes. What I can see and vision is we've talked about or vision casted having a trainer at the shelter that could probably train other agencies so we could provide the training. I think it'd be great. But what we'll have is a catalyst of how we respond to any situations in the shelter so we all are on the same page about what we should be doing and the training. So this is what we've always talked about, having the training we needed to provide better services. So I'm excited about that. Yeah. In this past month, I've been spending a lot of time talking about, I think I talked about it last board meeting, increased calls for emergency services. And in response to that, we were asked to look at non-Douglas County residents because there had been some questions about the shelter not providing shelter to people that were non-Douglas County residents at all. And that was probably just a misinterpretation of what was being said or misconception. So I had the numbers put together of how many people since the inception of the residency policy we've served and how many days, bed nights we have served everybody. So I think the misconception was when somebody's deemed a non-Douglas County resident that we don't offer services, but we do. Anytime we're in West, anybody in the city is welcome to come to West. No matter if they're a Douglas County resident or not, we don't check residency during those times when we're trying to keep people safe. And this is the numbers of how many people we've deemed non-Douglas County residents. It's 80 people since in the inception of this, and how many stays each person got. In 2026, we provided just this year, we're only in February, 745 bed nights for people that are non-Douglas County residents. In 2025, I believe the policy was enacted in October of 2025. We provided 500 bed nights to 80 people. Well, you see some zeros on there, but so I just wanted to make this thing aware. I have sent this information to assistant city manager, I believe the assistant county administrator, Jill's on. She got it, and then we provided it to other individuals so we can all try to get on the same page about actually what the impact of residency policy really is and how many people we do have that we serve that are non-Douglas County residents. And I believe I think the expectation was that this number was low, but it's pretty high, 80 people. And already it's 700 and some that night. So we're talking about how, if we need it, we're gonna start engaging in conversations at an executive level to see, is this the best policy we can come up with? Is there anything we need to do to revise this policy and how that affects everybody as a whole? One of the misconceptions, well, maybe not a misconception, but there's a belief that because we don't provide services, or it was thought that we didn't provide services to non-Douglas County residents, that was a direct cause of TRC and the hospital stays to increase. And our position is that people that need to be in the hospital or TRC will probably be at a point where they would be beyond our scope of care at the shelter if they could stay in the hospital. But you can't just go to the TRC or the hospital if you don't need those services. So they're not sheltering people that don't need those services, no matter if they're Douglas County residents or not. And I think we all need to just be on the same page to see how we can provide services in spite of, and not just services, but plans to limit the amount of, and this is tying into the emergency calls, of limit the calls of that with plans of care for people that we've seen, which some continuation of services for everybody. We don't have that now. And I think we can start these conversations to talk about how we continue care with people that, for whatever reason, are not leaving. They're staying and they're utilizing emergency services. So we need to figure out how we have that plan in place to where we can start to encourage or to work on what people can do when they're not Douglas County residents. And so I don't know where this can go, but I know it's better than everybody siloed just doing what they do and expecting the shelter to house everybody that can't be housed anywhere else. And that's kind of hard. And we've been trying to do that. And it's becoming overwhelming. These numbers alone show you how overwhelming it is. I know John knows, because you're seeing some of the people when we do overflow, it's the same people.
Yeah.
I even know that there are people that are housed that are seeking emergency services for whatever reason. But we don't get that information because they don't stay long enough to do assessments and things like that. But they're going to the hospital, they're going to TRC, they're receiving those other services. So I just wanted everybody to understand where we're at with that.
Jill's got her hand up. I'm
I
gonna.
got time.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, I just wanted to quickly just thank and appreciate James. I support everything that he just said. And James and I had a great conversation earlier this week that, I was just really reminded of the difficult situation that LCS has put in winter emergency shelter, but also throughout the year. And as it relates to there's the folks that James was talking about that have significant physical behavioral health needs that are not a good fit to be, yes, they need sheltering and housing, but LCS is not the solution for them. So invariably that does mean that emergency services get involved. And the support from LMH and other agents, TRC is necessary component of that. And I think it's illustrating, if anything, that we still have gaps in our continuum of care that we need to address, but LCS cannot be the only agency that's filling that gap. So I really appreciate the data that James pulled together. And we did share that with our county commission, just so they have that information, just so they have the facts to back up where everybody's at. And I look forward to, as James said, how to have a fresh conversation around, are we striking the right balance with the expectations of the community, but also being, you know, humane in the way that we approach it. So I just want to appreciate James and his staff and the challenging dynamics that he's in.
Thank you, Joe.
I sent that to everybody that's on the board members that are online. I sent that to you in an email. I'm sorry, I waited to the day. For my last 5 or 10 minutes, I want to talk about some of the stats that we have for the month of January, excuse me. We served 323 unique guests in January. That's a good amount higher than December's 309. We averaged about 113 night by night guests daily and 43 out of 24 guests. And of course, during West, it definitely ebbed to, I don't want to say the numbers, but way over our occupancy. But we did turn anybody away. We had the need for overflow, and overflow stood to the task, and we got everybody safely housed. We were in weather emergency shelter 29 days of the 31 days in January. So that's pretty telling. The temperature was below 32 degrees at some point during the day or night, and then we opened the doors for people to come in. We enrolled 76 individuals in the night by night in January. 126 guests stayed in night by night or pilot 24 for at least 15 or more days of the month. We had 37 individuals who were 62 plus staying at the shelter, or 11.5% of our total population. That's significant. 9 guests within our continuous stay programs exited to permanent housing, which is great. Or 43% of all continuous stay exits. Almost half, so I think that's pretty good. Our case managers provided 123 hours of services. Excuse me, 32 unique guests received case management services, including 5 state IDs and 3 birth certificates. We had Wellness Wednesday yesterday, and one of our new partners, the DMV is coming, and we're doing IDs. One of the issues that I'm seeing with that, even with the health department, is that people sign up, but they don't wait until their time slot comes up and they leave on Thursday. They just don't wait long enough. And we saw that with the DMV. The first 3 or 4 people that were scheduled to get driver's license, and we had all their documentation ready to go. They just didn't show up for their appointment. And so what I'm going to do is develop a way to incentivize staying. I've even said maybe, I don't know, we'll figure out a way to get the word out and have people stay longer, or incentivize them to meet those appointments, because I think it's important, because it's good services that are being provided. I don't know, is that about 20 minutes?
Just a rough idea.
How many?
3.
It's just it's a rough idea.
It's good though. I liked it because
Hopefully
when I saw it, I prepared to dwindle it down to the important things. One of the things I want to say is that I am overly pleased with Spencer Art Museum. They have an exhibit. If you haven't seen it, you can come to the shelter. Have y'all seen it?
Just on Facebook.
Oh, okay. You gotta see it in person. Come put a blossom on the tree. Anytime you want to stop by, say you want to blossom the tree. We had our first visit with guests on yesterday, and it was wonderful. They came back really excited. The artist showed up. I think she traveled back to Japan today, and it was just wonderful. They are overly pleased, and so we're going to be working with some collaborations with the art museum to do some other things in the future. But they're happy, we're happy, and I can tell you when I first got asked to do this, a couple of months into, or maybe almost a year into my employment, I couldn't envision how we could ever do that. I couldn't, but I said yes, and we built up to being able to do that, and it's wonderful to see something like that come to fruition. It's great. So if you haven't seen it, or if you haven't seen the exhibit at the art museum, I would suggest you want to go. It's a wonderful thing. So it's good for the community. It's good for our guests. So I think that's. Anybody have any questions?
Well, the continuum of care, so people going over to TRC and LMH, you know, obviously TRC is people with substance use that are heading over to be there for this period of time. And then what happens, do they come back to you when they get out? Because TRC is what, 72 hours?
Yeah, they come back. And so the whole thing about that, when I think about it holistically, is that if we knew what the plan was for these individuals, that we'd have something to say to engage with on, did you follow up? Or if we see something episodic, we can say, this seems like it happened before. Here's your plan, your safety plan. Do you want to exercise or go back? You know, just some continuation and say, go to TRC again, because what it seems like is that we just do shelter, they do TRC, and the connectiveness that we need is missing.
So what kind of programming or support do those people have when they come back from TRC? Do they come back with some kind of peer support or some kind of,
Not to my knowledge.
or any kind of programming or any?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay,
Jill's got a comment in the chat.
sure.
It just says discharge planning and care coordination.
Discharge planning and care coordination?
Yeah, I don't know if
Okay.
she's saying that happens or if that is.
I think that's what's neat. That's where there's a deficit.
Oh, yeah, okay, all right, because I was gonna say, that's great if they're getting discharge planning and care coordination, but just what is that level of care? I mean, ultimately, somebody in crisis goes in and then they come back out, they're still gonna have those same circumstances of waiting them, it's just putting the fire out temporarily, extinguishing it, and then they're coming back out to that, so a lot of these, you know, people that like report back, they're coming back with almost kind of getting back into the same thing almost immediately, right? And do you see them report and kind of bounce back and forth? Do you see a lot?
You know, the only time I get information about them going back is when they have another episode and it reaches the point where we ask them, would you like to go to TRC? Or we're gonna have to ask you to leave.
Right.
And so I wanna have this conversation in a atmosphere where we can work on what we can do and what we need to do, instead of, I don't wanna just sit here and tell you all the things that I don't like about what's happening, because
No, it's just, I mean, that's a crucial thing to have, is a place that you can
Absolutely.
send somebody for crisis, that's a
Absolutely.
valuable asset, that's a huge piece, but. You know, just again, so that we get to a place where we can. Have,
Absolutely.
you know, have some planning, some care coordination and some kind of programming to give them that stabilization instead of just allowing them to kind of repeat the same pattern. And they're going to LMH sometimes too, is that generally for SUD or that's more for medical needs, health needs? Okay,
But there are times where we try to get people anywhere that can provide the services that we can.
yeah,
And so sometimes it's usually a combination of both,
right.
a lot of times.
And with Anchored Collective, they're gonna do some counseling and therapy. So hopefully we can kind of see where that goes. I know kind of the people over at Havilon, we talked about trying to set up some schedule for at least some people to kind of interact, some of our peer counselors. And maybe even some of our therapists that we can kind of set up some times, and at least you can kind of build that trust, that relationship. If you have people that are going to TRC, that you can have somebody at least to kind of connect to. That, you know, we can, and I know that you have involvement with Mir as well, and those guys are great, so. Whatever we could do to kind of pull those resources, because I know it's probably a hard carry for one organization to kind of handle those things. The more people that we could kind of get on a schedule would probably be best. But do you say there's a lot of guests that you see leave to go to TRC? From
You know,
shelter, right?
a lot of guests go on their own.
Yeah,
So they sometimes make that decision on their own. A lot of times when we see someone, we're always encouraging them, can we call somebody to help you?
yeah,
And then we try to make it, a choice. Where would you like to go? Do you have any connections? If we know they've had connections and it's worked before, we revisit that and try to go back to where they have
where they have a community.
yeah, they have a community, they have some knowledge of who's there and they have knowledge of the individual.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
trust is huge if they're gonna take the steps,
Yeah.
just get something established and. That's where, I mean, again, the peer stuff is so huge, like if you could have some of that. And we can provide more of that, that would be good. Yeah, I'd still love to see what we could do to kind of grow more of that, because I think it would be so beneficial. It helps with the chaos that you experience there.
One of the things I'm doing and working on that's gonna happen, I spoke to Jonathan, at the health department, and he's willing to provide clinician for office hours. He can't commit to how much or often, but I committed to turning one of our rooms, and he said a place with a sink. I have the perfect place. We're working on the sink. We're gonna work on like, conversation area, waiting area, and then there's another room that the door is in that the sink could be an examination room, and it's separate, so there is a space that could be used privately for that. And once we do that, I can envision more agencies coming there and utilizing that room for the services that
Yeah.
you have to go through. So
Yeah.
I'm working on this. It's in the works.
To kind of coordinate between, like, there's several different groups that we kind of coordinate to, like, just make sure that not one organization has to do the lifting, and you have some scheduled days that everybody can kind of participate.
Right.
That stuff is great to kind of get that up and going. And that's such a, that again, like taking care of those people with SUD puts them on a path that we could get them into some of these nonprofit sober living dwellings and be a pathway to housing, so that they're not going through crisis, coming back to Lawrence Community Shelter, going through the same stuff again, and then you can build that relationship of trust and then start having that stepping stone towards housing, which that's where we need to get to. I mean, that helps out you, that helps out the TRC. Those are the things, again, like we've talked about repeatedly, like the thing that's burnout, everybody that works in, this field in various degrees, like you want to see success, like you want to see somebody like get progress, to make some progress. And when you see somebody just cycling through, it kills morale, it gets people burned out because you want to see results, you want to see it make a difference, you want to see some lift. So whatever we could do, I think that's, thanks for sharing that.
Okay, you're welcome.
That's great, whatever we can kind of add to it. I'm glad Anchored is,
I am.
yeah,
I am.
that's cool. All right,
All right, any other questions of James? Then let's move to the finance report. Karen, are you there to present?
Yep, you ready for me? I can share my screen. I'm gonna attempt to drive today.
Okay,
Drive and not literally, but figuratively on my computer. And I'm gonna do this a different way than I have in the past. All right, can you see my screen?
yes, ma'am.
All right, so let me get my notes up. All right, so let's start with the statements of assets, liabilities, and net assets. The only difference in how I'm presenting them today is just it's in Excel. If you guys would like the financial statements to be provided in Excel format also, let me know. I can send them out when I send the financial statement package and notes to Charlie, so that when he sends out the agenda, I can make sure that you all get that as well. I just figured this would be a lot nicer presentation wise. Anyway, new year for us. I know we're well into February, but we're talking about January. So our cash and liquidity we're down from December. December, we ended with $634,136. At the end of January, we have $385,577. Compared to January 2025, where we had 602,984. That was largely due to the city funding addendum for Pallet 24. This represents for the difference between January 26 and January 25, a 36% decrease year over year. Just kind of highlights that we are very sensitive to our cash flows. Accounts receivable wise, we are at 866,979 at January 31st. It's also because we were waiting for the executed contract from the city. The payment was fully accrued in January. It's been crazy. I've been trying to do the audit. Speaking of, that's fully underway. But anyway, so a large amount of the accounts receivable is the first quarter payment from the city of $787,500, which represents a quarter of the $3.15 million that we are in a service contract with them. Excuse me. Net assets is sitting at 4,364,584 compared to 3.35 in January of 2025. Current year earnings, Jesus, is at $479,561 compared to a loss of $411,858 in January of 2025. Total equity increase is 30.1% year over year. Fixed assets, we are 3.594 million net of depreciation. We still have 15,000 sitting in construction in progress due to the warehouse renovations that are going on. That represents the engineering bills. I expect that because we have the city drawing down CDBG funds and also paying the invoices for that construction due to our cash constraints, will need to be, I'll be communicating with their auditors so that we can get all that recorded correctly. Speaking of auditors and getting our records straight, we still don't have cost per pallet unit from the city of Lawrence. That the pallet units that are in the back of the shelter are still not on our books. The only thing that is currently on our books is the construction expenses and the engineering expenses that we paid out of pocket for. The pallet 24 cabins were purchased at the time that the village was constructed. So I'm still waiting on them to transfer those assets over to our books so that I can get them recorded properly. So I expect this balance sheet to be changing. Liabilities, we are up $207,930 up from December's $139,550. Due to the nature of our current payroll reports, I have a lot more information than I received before. They're also getting treated differently in terms of how the ins and outs are coming in terms of cash. So more information. I'm still work in progress with these financial reports as I try to get them even more granular than they are right now. I know you guys love that. Maybe not. Maybe it's just me and Kevin. I don't know. Anyway, what's up?
It's good.
It's good.
I do want it in Excel too.
Okay. All right. Perfect. I'll make a note of that. So wages payable, we have about 75,000 as of the end of January going into February, along with 42,000 in federal and FICA taxes, 8,700 in state withholding taxes, about 5,000 in state unemployment. I have an estimate here on union dues payable. And then we have Other current liabilities, which I believe are health insurance or health benefits related deductions that need to be paid out. We also have about $1,300 in 401k payable. Long-term liabilities, the only one we have is the loan from the city on the main shelter at $322,335. Total liabilities at $530,264. Does anybody have any questions about our statements of assets, liabilities, and net assets? Okay, moving on. Also need to include this. All bank accounts, prepaid accounts, and liability accounts are reconciled monthly with no unexplained differences. Bank reconciliations have been provided to the board chair, Mr. Bryan, for oversight and transparency, ensuring the reliability and accuracy of these financial statements. Moving on to our monthly performance. So January presented with total revenues of $843,338. Again, that's going to be largely the city of Lawrence payment there. We had budgeted for $324,277. This is because I've split out the city payments month to month, so that it's not looking like big swings. That is a more accurate way of doing it when we're doing accrual basis accounting, which I'm still adjusting to. We had modified cash basis, going to accrual. We have a year. I am the accounting. Please be patient with me. Anyway, we had total operating expenses of $344,826 compared to budgeted $347,000. So we had a favorable variance of $2,400, just 1% under budget. We did achieve a net surplus, again, considering the city payment, net surplus of $479,561 for the month. Revenue highlights, again, accrued revenue from the city. We got the Douglas County payment as expected. Individual donations are down. So $4,726 below budget of $12,792, which is typical post-holiday. We did get a pretty big payment from Douglas County Community Foundation of $6,550. That's exponential, 6,342% of the budget that we were expecting in the foundation line. We also received some pretty generous in-kind donations in January. PepsiCo donated 4 pallets of Gatorade, I believe. And so the pound cost per pound that I've recorded ended up being the majority of that. I'd say probably about $15,000. The rest came from the discount that we received from paychecks and everyday citizens coming by donating clothes and food and hygiene supplies. Expense performance wise, again, 1% under budget. Payroll is 249,700. Mine is different. $254,463, which is about 9% under our monthly budget. Still favorable. Also highlights that we are still understaffed. Our groceries budget here looks like we're high. Let me go to here. And let me also freeze pane so that we can see where we're at. Okay, so groceries. We spent $19,457 over a budget of $12,500. It's about 56% over budget. But again, donated groceries. So there we go. That's all PepsiCo. Very favorable in-kind donation. We only expected $1,417 in in-kind donated groceries. So it's really great. Computer and IT expenses are at $50.98. 63% over monthly budget. That has to do with software. We did have to pay for training services that we're no longer using, but we missed the window to cancel those services. The renewal came up in November. And so because I had closed out 2025 for the audit, I had to record it in 2026. Operational supplies, 32% over budget. That is just in general here, $10,894. Over a budgeted 8242. And then repairs and maintenance were also over budget by about 25%, 7766 or 7716 over 6179 budgeted. Cash decreased in January from December to January by $248,559. Right here, we're on our statements of cash flow. Year to date, it's going to be the same because it's just January. We have received the city payment of the $787,500 last Thursday. And again, we had that payroll savings. I will say though, let me change my screen share. We had a lot of overtime hours in January, 1,154.6 overtime hours and 8,350 regular hours. My FTE calculation was based on 160 hours, which is 4 weeks. And so using this methodology, I didn't have a breakdown because we're still ironing out kinks with paychecks. So we budgeted for 60 people, actuals, and again, really considering the overtime hours of 59.41. I think if I did it more, like included 16 hours, I think it came out to be like 52 and change in terms of FTEs. And then the grocery variance, again, was because of the in-kind donation from PepsiCo. We still need to get that under control. However, we did expect that this year we were going to be short on cash. And so we still budgeted pretty conservatively, but we need to consider boosting our cash flow, increasing our revenues so that we can feel okay that we're serving everybody. It's really it for me. I don't have, again, because of the transition, I don't have volunteer contributions like I normally would for our notes. Yeah, that's all I'll say about that. Do you all have any questions about any of the financial statements, anything that you saw?
So, Karen, so what it seems like to me is that the city will pay in 4 installments. So the
Yes.
4 months were way over budget, and then those other 8 months will probably be below.
Right.
Over a year and work out.
Right. And I need to correct that. So, this has been between me getting sick and trying to get the audit completed by myself, getting caught up on everything that needed to happen in order to make these financial statements happen. This is not, it's going to be changing.
Yeah, I'm not critical. I'm just trying to say that that's the way it looks. Yeah, I'm just trying to understand it, but yeah.
I was curious on the donations. Do you have the year over year? See how that changed from January of last year?
Yeah, let me share my screen again and I'll share that with you. All right, so year over year, we are down an individual. So just kind of shows where we're at economically also.
And so I think this is one where when we adopted the budget, we made the way we got to a balanced budget was we estimated that we would increase donations pretty significantly. And
Correct.
I think it might have been around 50% increase.
Yes.
Is that right?
So what I did with our budget in zero for this year. So remember last year we just had an annual budget and I said, okay, let's cut that by 12 and then that's going to be our budget for every month. And so what I did for some line items, I used trends and I had AI help me with the monthly trends. And so the trend for January over the last 2 years, it projected based on what we had budgeted that it would be reasonable for $11,355 to be budgeted for individual donations. But we only received 4,664. Now, I also want to caveat this with we did receive a lot of the gala pledges in January, but those are receivables. And so though that revenue is recognized in 2025.
Right. Okay. I think this is one we just need to be really attentive to, and you know, if what we did in the budget is unrealistic, we need to be able to address that pretty early in the year.
Yes.
So then is that budgeted number different every month?
Yeah.
Yes.
Based
Yes.
upon
Right.
essentially the same month the year before?
Yeah. So it's kind of like if January was, if 5% of donations came in January of last year, then you would estimate 5% for this year. That's why it's helpful to then look at the year over year and say, we're actually continuing to have a decline in donations year over year, not just compared to the budget. All right. I question is not necessarily financial, but it came up when you were talking about the pallet 24. Those assets not being transferred yet to the LCS. Do we ever resolve who's insuring those?
I got no feedback from CK about that.
If they belong to the city, has the city provided any feedback on whether they consider them insured by the city?
Nope.
Okay.
So are we doing a fundraising? What, I'm not the first part, but are we doing a fundraising? Is there a plan to get it to budget or is there? I don't know.
Yeah, we're putting together different events and fundraising for this year. Right now, we're just working on a tournament, but we're also working on different ways to do appeals. So it just, instead of just doing a spring appeal, winter appeal, we're looking at different events to do appeals for. One of the things we talked about today was during the month of hunger, we're gonna do an appeal. Our chef is we're gonna highlight her and talk about why it's important. So we're looking at different ways to capitalize on what time of the year is so we can send out these appeals in correspondence with or a connection with some of the things that are going on. So we're more intuitive to that. We also, I think I talked about this last month, is that we got monetized on Facebook. And our website person is looking at ways and trends of when we got the most donations. And so one of the things that was talked about was that when we do interviews in the newspaper, we get a lot of donations. So I'm already reaching out to Lawrence Journal World and Lawrence to set up interviews for different things. We're gonna do one about the art project that we're doing. We're gonna do one about the construction that's going on. So we're gonna wait till that's fully going on and then show the picture, and then I'll do an interview. And so we're looking at ways to capitalize on the events that we're doing by always highlighting the services that we provide that are new and people need to know about.
To the radio station.
Yeah,
Too.
which
Yeah.
one? Which one are you talking?
Well, what is it? It's, I used to think of it as the laser, but it's what, KISS and 101.
Yeah.
And
He's on my
the whole,
list. What's his name? I can't think of his name now.
um,
Kim and I did that in December.
yeah, Kim, yeah, well, she having you on for one of her podcasts or.
No, it wasn't.
radio
Kim was on that one with Kim. I'm talking about, he's in the office right on the next to her. Can't think of his name, right? Like, he does the Journal Lawrence business. Steve Herzog, that's it. So he said, well, I want y'all to come back. So we're going back. We just
Yeah,
talked
yeah.
about this today. We're going back.
No, it'd be
And do
good.
something to talk about, maybe the art show or something. So we're putting plans together to start capitalizing this.
Absolutely, yeah, that'd be good.
Also, in the mail the other day, I got my 3D model of step-up beds.
Oh, cool, the ones that, like, the ones from KC that.
I got my model and I'm excited about that. So I've already started applying at companies, philanthropy departments to ask for money. And so I'm working with Becky again. She's gonna be my mentor in fundraising.
Wow.
And she's excited about that. But it's just a lot of moving parts right now, but.
So those are the ones that have, like, you have the multi, yeah, those are the coolest things.
Today, y'all can see them, but, you'll get to see them.
They're neat, you have it, everybody has privacy, it's kind of like a room without having a room, like the way that they're all set up in the storage, they're incredible, yeah.
So I got the 3D model, I met
Yeah.
with a step-up guy, but one of the things we also talked about is doing fundraising with the goal in mind, instead of just asking for funding.
Mhm.
We're gonna ask for funding to contribute that to something
To a
tangible.
need, specific, yeah.
Right. It just generates a lot. And then there'll be some times where Karen talked about having reoccurring donors look at a different donation model and maybe being in competition or something like, so we're already talking about these ideals to do.
That would be so cool to kind of have like some kind of like presentation where we could put it on the website, that's something year round. That you could kind of have these stories, this like YouTube channel of like a presentation on, this is a specific need that you have for the shelter. That when you're out doing these things, like if you're doing stuff with the paper or the radio or things like that, that you have that as a place that you could direct people to, that they could be like, yeah, I wanna put my money towards getting those beds. Those things were so cool. I saw them, like, cause I don't know. I mean, those are really exciting because it does really kind of set up, you know, rather than just having like this, you know, cause the trauma that you're dealing with, you wanna kind of have like that safety, that separation. So, yeah, that would be something really cool. And then any other specific needs that you have, special needs, and that could be year round, people contributing to it. That's cool.
Are there any other questions about the financial report?
So many things said. Construction stuff, yes.
All right, if not, can I get a motion to accept the January financials?
I'll make that motion.
All right, thank you. And is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, if there's no other discussion, all in favor of accepting the January 2026 financial report, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, motion passes. Just do a quick time check. It's 6:30. We're running probably a half hour behind, so,
20 minutes.
okay.
You're moving into new business.
Let's go down to public comment policy. Last month, we made the decision that we needed to dissolve our committees and at that time, the public comment policy that we had some work that was tasked to the executive committee, which doesn't now exist. So we knew there was a need to kind of revise the policy. Also, the initial policy did call for like an annual review. So Christina offered to draft up, revisions of the policy and, go ahead and present it.
Yeah, thank you, Charlie. And I want to note too, because of coma, and also because this is like a public comment, you really want to be engaged, you want people to engage in this process with this. So I pulled in David, and he and I met in one time to review the public comment policy that I had written up as a draft. And still, there's still some things that we want to iron out. We had a few questions that we posed to Charlie, but ultimately what we want to do is to encourage a philosophy of that people who are experiencing homelessness or people who are the guests can also have a way to engage in public comment or to submit their comment. So we've got a feedback or a procedure for the community guests. The review process is a little different, and I'll talk to you all about that too. That's written currently online. But also we wanted to influence what the county and other city officials are doing. I think it's good to note the county is going to change their public comment intake due to just some recent, happenings and communities want to talk and people want to speak on things. The relevancy of the public comment is also something to take note of as well. So we took the public comment policy from the county and applied that for those in person and on live and for our Lawrence Community Shelter Board directors, public comments and time that we have. We also know that we only have an hour, we only have 1 day and 3 hours, maybe 2.5 to meet. And so what would be a good use of the time that we have to discuss the public comment? We thought about utilizing the advisory board, and I know the advisory board met yesterday for LCS. So we thought about maybe using their influence and their shared governance to help us to, whittle down some of those things that are maybe top comments that we could use and make an influence, or if those are like day-to-day things people wanted to say, people wanted to comment on all the things, then maybe the advisory board could help us with that. But in talking to Charlie a little bit, Charlie just texted me, I didn't respond to your text. I thought about, the way that which we could use our time wisely. And I wanted to make an argument kind of for a centralized public comment with the board. We have a little bit of time, I don't know if make votes, but rather we together, maybe using this time to do that. But what I wanted to propose is to share this public comment out to you all so you can view it. And also I wanted to work on adopting a centralized collection system for us. So as it sits now, people can go online, their submittal for public comment goes to like, if you want to talk to the board of directors. And so I don't know if we want to engage in direct public comment, but that's how it speaks on our website now. So the process by which how the things or the comments are collected is a little bit changed, I think, to improve transparency and efficiency. I'd like for us to consider that all correspondence and speaker requests, if we ever get those, be directed to the board secretary, and that would be me. But in review, the chair and the vice chair would also review those prior to our meetings. So what it would look like, it would be a process that ensures the comments are accurately recorded, categorized, and addressed, and allow the board to review them before our large meeting. And so that would mean that the public comments would come to myself. I would have a few days, 48 hours. I have something written out. Here's the plan. But understanding that we would be and create a centralized response for the chair and the vice chair as well. It's kind of tricky with the COMA. The 3 people we have to meet and we have a large board and we really want like to be engaged. But for the process to be more streamlined and our time to be used effectively, I think it might work for us to have 3 people look at the comments and then disseminate them throughout and have them also always in a board packet as well, all the public comments that come. So it's a lot. I wanted to give you all a chance to review the edits and the updates and revisions that have been influenced by David and myself, and then see what you all think, if you have any feedback. And again, the reply all button and things, I'm not sure about how we work with that to give and gain feedback, but I'd like to share this out with you all. You get your feedback on it, and then we propose at the next meeting that this is something that we just confirm. So more discussion, I'm sure, to be had as you look at it and review. But one of the things to note too was an anonymous way that the folks who are as sheltered guests can provide their feedback. And so thinking about how maybe a collection box could be somewhere in the vicinity where it's checked frequently, a suggestion box, and it's confidential, and folks would kind of submit their comments if they're not comfortable with submitting their comments in other ways. There's a direct way that influences the communication. And folks can also always talk to you, James, or others. But another way for folks to feel like their comments could be placed without judgment. They can be looked at frequently and reviewed by whoever would be governing that. I also have one question too about the oral voicemail. There's a way in which people can call a number. That number is 251-0686. Is that the phone number for?
It goes to me.
Do you? Okay,
Yeah.
so then again, the process might need to be adjusted and we need to talk about that more. So there's
Yeah.
more discussion about processes, but ultimately what we have gathered was an edit for how the public comment can go for the sheltered guests and for anyone who wants to comment on any of the number of things that we do as board, and work is through leadership as well.
All right, thanks. And thanks, David, for helping with that too. Are there any questions or comments? We have a little discussion tonight.
Yeah, this is Shannon. First of all, I would say, for coma purposes, we do not hit reply all. We just reply to the people working on it, and then you can collate all the comments. And the other thing that I didn't hear is we don't want to be a vehicle for personal attacks. And so depending on how we're thinking about publishing the comments we have, we just need to be careful about things that sort of cross the line from commenting about the shelter and how it's running, etc., and sort of public attacks either of other guests or staff or whoever. So we need to just be thinking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a rules of conduct button that's in the edited and draft. It's also taken from the county, but it speaks just to that, Shannon, about comments that are threatening, aggressively hostile, or belligerent, and how the board would reserve the right to review those and remove those vulgar, rude, or inappropriate written comments.
Where is that at?
It's in the. We were just on it just a little while ago.
That's great.
What page?
Oh, I believe it's the last page. I'm sorry, Charlie.
Yeah, it's a WWE.
Under
Rules of
the
conduct.
methods. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Yeah, it's consistent with, the other government, so it's like, you're not really like kind of moving, away from what people are used to in other governing bodies like the county and the city.
So one thing, when we made the initial policy, we were very deliberate not to try to replicate how the city and the county provide space for public comment, because it seemed to be near impossible to control the meeting when public is allowed to speak essentially at will.
Yeah.
And you've seen strategies where the community will queue up, 30, 40 people.
Mhm.
And it just basically goes, a meeting that goes into after midnight. We don't have access to the building after midnight. So we deliberately eliminated that as an option. So there's no live comment. The comments had to always be submitted in writing. And the comments had to be, if they couldn't do it in writing, they could do a recording, which would be transcribed and then provided to the board. And my immediate kind of reaction to this was, a lot of this doesn't seem to speak to the board. Like there's discussion here about just general giving feedback to LCS. staff will do this and all that, like, we don't, that's not really germane to the board. So it's when the board is being
Address,
addressed, like how do we want to handle that?
right,
And Shikani and I were talking about this a little bit yesterday. We went to the training that the Community Foundation put on for board leadership or something like that. And one thing that, Shikani, if you're still on the call, please join in on this. But one thing we talked about, if the executive committee doesn't exist, we could just always advance a public comment to the full board so that as a full body, we can make the determination whether we think it's a board issue or a staff issue. And so then it kind of eliminates that executive committee role of trying to decide on how to direct it. It used to be like, all right, executive review it. If it needs to go to James, it goes to James. If it needs to go to the board, then it goes to the board. And so that was the work that the executive was expected to do. Without executive committee, you can just say it always comes to the whole board. So there's no public comment that the whole board doesn't see. In terms of whether it is a staff issue or a governance issue, that would be something we would have to collectively decide if we're going to say, hey, public comment number 52, James, would you take care of this one? Or, no, this one seems like a matter for the board. So I do think we'll probably will get comments that aren't really germane to the board. Comments that are really intended for staff.
Charlie, what is our current comment volume?
We've had zero public comments through the process, but we need to be realistic. We didn't actually have it live on the website until just recently. So we adopted the policy, but didn't get it implemented because at the time the website was being redesigned, and I think then we just kind of forgot to.
you've not got weird email or weird voicemails or anything like that?
No,
Nobody's called the number?
no, but so I'd say it's like we barely got this thing launched on the website, so it's hard to say like.
What we're gonna have, what to expect?
Yeah, I think then we recognize like as soon as it got launched, there's now that we need to make a pivot. So.
So there's more discussion, the centralization of the board or of the public comment came as a result of the text messages or the one text, it was more of a question that you had, and I thought, well, originally I thought everyone should be able to view all the comments, right? Like we should all, if it's coming to us as a board, that it's very confusing getting online for me. If I were going to submit a public comment, I would not want to submit it to a board member if I was submitting it to in general. So maybe delineating between who are we talking to if the public's wanting to talk to us. Like right now it says as submit a comment to the board member. I don't know if that's what everyone wants to do when they submit a public comment. Maybe it's just general. Maybe they would also recognize that. But given our time and given history of understanding how time runs out for our really deep discussions, centralizing that communication just makes sense to me. That way we can all have a dedicated time. We can look at that just like we look at the board packets review. Everyone gets a chance to look at all the comments. And if you wanted to take some time during our discussion or agenda, maybe that could be a time to talk on. But I like this conversation. I like where it can go. I don't know that there was a policy that was really wanting to gather the shelter guest comments as well. So it can deepen and it can continue progressing. I'd love your feedback on it as it sits right now as an edit, and it's a draft. So anyone has any continual feedback, we'd love to continue to look at that. And David, if you work with me continuously to see what we can do to streamline it even more. We could just make it speak to where we want it to as a board moving forward. And also look at our website to see if our website is accurate in the way that it talks about collection of our public comment. Maybe we want to say, don't contact our board directors, leave a public comment, something as simple as that, to talk to Lizzie about making adjustments. But that's it. Gonna make 20 minutes.
Yeah, I think one of the things you're raising is just how the public is maybe giving comments beyond the board. And I don't know, James, if that's something you can speak to, like, if it's not a board matter, is there a clear policy about how the public can give feedback? Is it? Because I think that might be, like you're talking about in this draft, there's things that really guests may give feedback directly to a staff member or case managers, training document feedback. I was reading that thing. Does that mean that they're gonna then document it on their behalf to give to the board? And I wasn't clear about that, so, I wasn't sure if this, if the way I was reading it, it was unclear to me if this was written broadly to give the community a chance to give feedback to the whole organization, or if it's really just for the board. That part I couldn't really distinguish. So if you think there's a need to give feedback to the broader organization, then maybe this policy needs to be able to signal to people, like, this is a policy about feedback to the board, and there's another path if you want to give feedback. So,
Yeah.
Chakani, were you trying to say something?
Yeah, I was just saying, one of the things I think that we're going to touch on a little later also is when we talked about this, I hadn't, had the opportunity to look at the draft. So Christina, David, thank you for, getting this together and getting us to look at this and getting our juices flowing about how we're going to proceed forward. But one of the things that I wanted to kind of see is what did we have before? What did that look like? Some of the questions we're asking right now, why, or I think it was Shannon that just asked, well, how much feedback, has been submitted, right? Some of those things. So having that access, and I can see the other public comment that we had. And like you said, it was going to the executive committee to have them address it. Now that we don't have that committee, right? What does that look like? And that's where Charlie and I were kind of talking about, hey, maybe it goes to the whole board. So we're all aware. That's just giving you a idea of how that conversation was going and started. But I appreciate you all getting this prepared, and we'll kind of look over it and give more feedback as it comes.
I believe the city commission has an email address that pushes anything that's emailed to it to every one of the commissioners. And that's kind of where I was thinking, I guess we just no longer have anyone doing any of the preliminary work. It just comes to everybody.
Yeah, we should be able to put something on the website that has like a group inbox.
Yeah, that would be, I think, a simple way forward. It still leaves us having to determine the germaneness to the board, because we'll have to filter and direct it, I guess. And then, as I was imagining, is we would just add a section in the agenda. If we could even just leave it there as a standing item, just public comment,
Yeah,
and provide a little description of the approach we use. And then if there's nothing that month, we just at least make an acknowledgement that we received no public comments since the last board meeting.
yeah.
And if
Or we
there is-
receive the public comment and it's
If-
not being discussed because it violates.
Right.
You know,
So you could like at least have a notation every time we meet.
yeah,
We got public comments, we didn't get public comment. If we did get one, we would all know what it was. We could say,
yeah.
Is there any motion on the floor?
We can always revisit it as volume increases too,
Right.
because who knows what kind of, I mean, if we don't have a track record of how.
I think if someone put a public comment in their remarks, they say they want to address us, that'd be something else we could deliberate, decide, do we want to put this person on the agenda so they can speak to us face to face? So it doesn't eliminate the possibility we could have a live public commenter, but it would be a way to at least make sure it's scheduled, doesn't derail our meetings.
Yeah,
Um, I think the other challenge would be like kind of Shannon saying, like, as people are speaking live, if they're doing things that seem, inappropriate, we'd have to be ready to handle that. So,
get some security.
I don't know, we got the library here.
I
They
mean,
have some security.
That's-
I'm not sure they take that responsibility.
deterrence, I mean, those are barriers and those are big things to think about, right? I mean, people can come in and say, you work in trauma environment, people come in and they have to be heard, but we want to make sure that there's like compliance here, a centralized documentation process. We're complying with open meeting laws, we work for the city and county and for the community. So we want to have a way for people to tap in. So please read that over. Like I said, it's a draft, it's an edit. David and I will work on it and work on something finalized for us next month. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Like extra little time to work on something and finalization.
Thank you for your effort on that. Next item, the board member updates or comments. I just have one thing. Chicani and I were talking a little bit about our SharePoint site. And one of the discussion items in that training yesterday was about, it was kind of like board best practices, and there was a packet with some information about putting together an onboarding, like a board manual. And it's like, I'm sure all of us have thought, gosh, it'd be so nice if there was such a thing. I know when Megan, she joined the board, she met with me and gave me like a list of a dozen things she wanted. And, it's like, as I read it, I'm like, yeah, this should all be in a nice binder for you. Or we should at least organize it somehow so that it's easy and we all have the same, collection of information. And Chicani, suggested like, this is something that she's happy to help with. And, I thought, well, that's great. Let's put it out there and see if anyone minds. And if no one minds, Chicani's willing to take on the task of basically trying to organize our board shared drive and hopefully clean it up a bit, because I think there's a lot of remnants from prior to this version of the board even existing.
Yeah.
And maybe we can then establish like, here's the folder that's essentially the equivalent of a board manual. Just wanted to throw it out there, get any feedback. Does that seem like
I think that's great.
I mean, you're one of the new-
Stuff that
the
needs
two
to be
newest
put
folks
together.
here?
Yeah, I think it would help.
Yeah, that'd be
Okay.
awesome. Yeah.
Okay, all right, Connie, are you still feeling comfortable taking that task on?
Yes.
All right, so we appreciate your work on that, and I know if you want to meet with me about it to get started, I'd be delighted to do that.
Yes. And Charlie, yeah, you did, I would want to do that. And maybe, we can start with anybody with any suggestions with, I have a guidance, right, of what the board, what we need and what we can put in there, but any suggestions that you have of what you want this to look like? What do you think it would help us to have at our, fingertips that we share with each other? So, yes, James.
James, got it?
I will help you with the shelter side.
Okay.
So I think we need to include introduction to the shelter, a tour, and just do, like we set up the emails and all that. Instead of just sending that out by email, we could do that on site. Now that I got somebody that is good at doing that, we can help do that because he's doing that already, and so
Yeah.
it wouldn't be hard to say this is for board member that. And whatever you put together, we can have that packet for them where they have their first introduction to coming to the shelter, and that's where it starts. To give them that information, then turn it over to the president, whatever, but they had that onboarding. So they had some exposure to the shelter and show every part of the shelter so you get a feel for the agency itself. So I think that'd be important. And then on the board side, how y'all want to onboard somebody about being on the board. So
Karen just,
I'll do that.
Yep,
Karen
let's
just
hope,
commented.
tell me what we need and we'll work together to get that done. So yeah, I feel good about that because that really helps, you know, when you come on or when we're looking for something, kind of get that organized. We went, like Charlie mentioned, we went to a workshop. What was it, Charlie? What was the name of it? Well, a workshop for
It was
board.
the K-State Extension and Douglas County Community Foundation. They put out these board leadership trainings. Shannon had forwarded it and I pushed it
Yes.
out to all of us. And we both went to it yesterday. It was a
So
great training. All right, thanks, Shakani. Are there any other board member updates?
Just a comment, I would like to do that. Tour.
Sure.
After April 15th, but, but I think that'd be,
Okay,
We'll be ready for you.
okay.
anything else? Okay. We have 2 executive sessions tonight, so I got a draft motion up on the screen. If someone's interested in making a motion.
I'm happy to, right here. I move that the board recess into executive session pursuant to KSA 754319 B3 to discuss employee negotiations related to the collective bargaining agreement. The executive session will include the board members and the executive director participating in person or remotely. The board will resume open session in room C and on Zoom no later than 7:11 p.m. No binding action will be taken during the executive session.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, John. All right, if there's no discussion, all in favor of the motion to recess into executive session, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. That motion passes. And the next item on the agenda was a potential action to authorize authorization for the collective bargaining. And we have draft motion to consider. Someone be willing to make the motion, please? It's a little bit long.
Yeah, so is it all 4 of those points?
Yeah, I move that.
Okay. I move that the board authorize the executive director to, 1, serve as the organization's lead representative in collective bargaining negotiations with Communications Workers of America, Local 6400, for the purpose of negotiating a successor collective bargaining agreement. 2, retain experienced labor counsel to advise and assist in such negotiations as the executive director deems necessary within approved budgetary limits. 3, provide the board with periodic status updates throughout the negotiation process. And 4, present any tentative collective bargaining agreement to the full board to review and approval by affirmative vote in open session before becoming final or binding on the organization.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second,
Thank you. There's no other discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, motion passes. Next item is another executive session. This one to do part of James's performance review. Would someone make the motion, please?
I move that the board recess into executive session pursuant to KSA 75-4319B1 to discuss matters related to the performance of the executive director as a non-elected board employee, including review of the executive director's self-evaluation. The executive session will include board members and executive director participating in personal or remote. The board will resume open session in meeting room C and on Zoom no later than
7:50.
7:50 p.m. No binding action will be taken during executive session.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, John. And if there's no other discussion, all in favor of the motion to go back into executive session, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed, say nay. Motion passes and we will go back into executive session. Last item on our agenda, the last item is actually adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
All right, thank you. If there's no discussion on adjourn, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, we are adjourned at 7:52. Thank you.